OneWrestling.com presents Big Ray's Heel Appeal.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Big Ray's Heel Appeal, where being bad never felt so good. Now, again, this is a series here at One Wrestling Video, and, me and Bill, like I said last week, we're talking, and we said, you know what, I've always been a fan of the bad guy in professional wrestling. I've always been a fan of the heel in professional wrestling, so I said, I'd like to do a series on some of my favorite heels, some of my favorite moments in professional wrestling, bad guy moments, so on and so forth. And I decided this week, I'd give my top 5 favorite heel turns of all time. Now, I'm going to ask you guys really quickly to give me a follow on Twitter at Big Ray Show. Give Bill Apter a follow on Twitter at Apter One Wrestling. And of course, us here as an entire family and conglomerate at One Wrestling. I want to give a big shout out to my friends over at the Hami Media Discussion group on Facebook. Check those guys out there. Check us out also on Facebook here at One Wrestling. And yeah, man, let's just jump right into this. First I'm going to go through a couple of honorable mentions, because what I'm going to ask you guys to do is, when you guys hit me up on Twitter, you can give me your top 5 list. I'll give it a mention next week. But I want you to leave your comments here below, and I want to see what your top 5 list is. And to be honest with you guys, my top 5 list will probably not be maybe close to your guys. Maybe we'll have very similar top 5s, but my top 5 is going to have a couple of mentions that maybe younger fans won't necessarily understand or maybe know. So you have an opportunity to go on YouTube or WWE Network, wherever you can find everything here, I think, on the WWE Network. And yeah, you know what, let me just run through some of the honorable mentions. We can go, I have my notes over here. We have, look, you have the Freebirds when they turn on the Von Erichs. That was a huge deal back in World Class Championship Wrestling. What about the Mega Powers exploding? Yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage, yeah, turning on Hulk Hogan. Do you really blame Macho Man Randy Savage for turning on Hogan? I mean, in my personal opinion, I think Hogan had eyes for Miss Elizabeth. If you just go back and kind of take a look at everything that happened there, I don't know, man. I don't think Macho Man was all too wrong for turning on Hulk Hogan. And what made him a bad guy? Because he loved his woman? Because he wanted to take care of Elizabeth? Because Hulk Hogan was probably trying to steal her away? I mean, really, let's really think about this. What about Bret Hart turning on the American fans? Again, I mean, I like to look at the bad guy's point of view, or the heel's point of view. And the fact is that, at this point in juncture, America had basically turned their back on Bret Hart. So why wouldn't he turn his back on the American fans? I mean, the Canadian fans loved him. The European fans absolutely adored him. Why were we, the Americans here in the United States of America, the ones to turn our back on a clean-cut dude who defended the title with honor? He was a family guy. He was family values. Anyway, what about Shawn Micheals? Chris Jericho turning on Shawn Micheals. I gotta be honest with you. If I'm Chris Jericho, I would not have destroyed the Jeritron 3000. I'm saying, putting Shawn Micheals' head through that high-definition piece of art that he basically had hanging in the ring. Ridiculous. I mean, Shawn Micheals, I would have just tossed him out of the ring and maybe hit him with a chair. Anyway, what about The Rock? The people's champ turning against the people. The Rock becoming the corporate champion. What about Stone Cold Steve Austin? Let me tell you something, son. Stone Cold Steve Austin joining Vince McMahon, son. That's a terrible Steve Austin, but it doesn't matter. Why? Well, because I'm doing it. I'm a bad guy. Anyway, I'm going to jump into my number 5. Now, again, I'm going to tell my age here, but I remember seeing this as a very, very young child, and I actually watched this. Back in the day, we had what was called tape trading. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have the WWE Network. We didn't have the GWN. We didn't have the New Japan Pro Wrestling Network. What we did was we traded VHS tapes, okay, and my friend would, anyway, this was, when I first saw this was WWF, or the Best of the WWF, Volume 1, if I'm correct, and my father had kind of explained to me, again, I got to see Bruno Sammartino wrestle towards the end of his career, and I was very young. All this happened around 1980, and Bruno Sammartino, had this young man under his wing, and this guy, his name was Larry Zbyszko. Now that name absolutely rings a bell, right, guys? But what you may not know is that Larry Zbyszko was under the tutelage and under the big shadow of Bruno Sammartino, who in my father's eyes was the Muhammad Ali of professional wrestling. He was the greatest heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, 7 years as world heavyweight champion. Maybe I got that off, but I'm doing this on the top of my head. I don't have those things in my notes, but yeah, basically, so Bruno Sammartino was bringing up Larry Zbyszko to be, you know, the next big thing, so on and so forth. But he never got the cheers that Bruno had, and I remember they had a match. I think it was a televised match, but, you know, Bruno Sammartino was just making him look like a fool, and there was a couple of times where Larry Zbyszko actually held his own, you know, and Bruno Sammartino, you know, gave him some props, but Bruno Sammartino being the teacher in my eyes, now again, guys, you're going to have to look back in this, I think Bruno Sammartino was a little arrogant, you know, a little full of himself. He should have gave the kid a little more of a break, I think. But no, Larry Zbyszko, you know, he made a fool of him. Finally, Larry Zbyszko, the whole match was supposed to be like a technical match between Bruno and Larry Zbyszko. But Larry Zbyszko said, you know what, this is just not working. He would proceed to attack Bruno Sammartino and then basically leveling him with a chair. And this ain't the chairs they use today, ladies and gentlemen. This thing was freaking thick. It was probably steel, a legit steel chair. I mean, you could tell when he swung it over his head. Unbelievable. It was really, really good times. But this led to a great match. They feuded all through the 80s, guys. I gotta be honest with you. And this led to a match where Bruno Sammartino actually fought. I think it was in 1980. Oh, it was in Shea Stadium. Now they call it Crappy Field or Shitty Field. I'm a Yankees fan. Anyway, for the 36,000 fans, and Bruno Sammartino actually won that match. And I remember that match really vividly because his whole arm was just torn up from the steel cage. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this was a whole different world back in the day. But listen, if Larry Zbyszko didn't turn against Bruno Sammartino, where would Larry Zbyszko be? Larry Zbyszko, you know, moved on to become AWA World Heavyweight Champion and basically steal the moniker. And listen, it's not really stealing. It's more of an opportunity. You know, he's taking opportunities. He took the moniker of the living legend, and he became the living legend Larry Zbyszko. Later on, of course, guys, you would see him doing play-by-play with WCW, more in a babyface role. I guess as you get older, you get a little softer. Now, let's jump into my number 4. And my number 4 is a big one, guys, because this led to possibly one of the greatest runs in professional wrestling history. And one of these guys is mentioned as the greatest of all time. Many people, I don't think it. I think Ric Flair is the greatest of all time, to be honest with you. But yeah, you ever heard of the term the Marty Jannety of that tag team? Well, what I'm talking about is, well, Marty Jannety and Shawn Micheals, the breakup of the Rockers. Now, I remember as a kid, look, you know, again, I wasn't a big fan of the baby faces. I was a Hulk Hogan fan, I gotta be honest with you. I rooted for a lot of the bad guys. I used to love Demolition, Powers of Pain growing up. You know, Big Scary, the Road Warriors. You know, even when they turned good, they were still bad, if you know what I mean. And I like guys like that. I like wrestlers like that. Sensational Sherry when she was Sherry Martel. I thought she was awesome. But anyway, moving forward, guys. Yeah, this happened. The Rockers came into the WWF around 1985. And at one point, these guys technically won the Tag Team Championship against the Hart Foundation in a non-televised match. Well, the match was televised, but what happened was the ropes broke and they had to actually take the titles back from the Rockers. The Rockers never really hit that stride as a tag team. Very popular. Super popular. I mean, they were super over with the kids. The kids loved them. The girls loved them. I mean, who wouldn't love the Rockers? Two great-looking young talents. And, you know, some people would even say that Marty Jannety was almost as good, even better of an in-ring competitor than Shawn Micheals. But anyway, back in the day, before they came to the WWF, they were the Midnight Rockers, the AWA World Tag Team Champions, again, super over. But again, 1988, they came to the WWF, and it was 1992. It was the Barbershop. There was a segment by Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and, you know, there had been issues between Shawn Micheals and Marty Jannety. And in my humble opinion, I got to be honest with you guys, and I really do feel this way. I felt that Shawn Micheals was holding, I felt that Marty Jannety was holding Shawn Micheals back. You know, they were losing matches because of Marty Jannety. You know, let's be real, guys. Come on. I mean, let's be real, girls out there. Guys, whatever. Shawn Michaels way handsomer than Marty Jannety. I mean, let's be real. You know, come on. Anyway. And, you know, this guy, Jannety never had that it factor or the charisma that Shawn Michaels did. And Shawn Michaels pretty great on the mic as well. And as we later went on to find out that he would be super over, you know, on the microphone. But anyway, so yeah, you know, again, you know, it's a time where, again, Shawn Michaels took the opportunity. See, again, you know, a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, they cheated or they did a bad thing. No. He took an opportunity to, you know, and Marty Jannety was kind of, you know, hey, everything's okay, everything's great. You know, we're a tag team again. Everything's fixed and fine. He super kicked his partner in the face and then threw him through a glass window, which at that time, I got to tell you guys something. For people that were only WWF fans at the time, you know, never saw anything like that. And that was a vicious, vicious attack. And then he would proceed, and I think it was a WWF magazine, he would proceed to take that picture of the Rockers and rip it in half. Wonderful. Absolutely amazing. One of my very favorite moments. One of my favorite heel turns of all time. Again, guys, I want you to leave your comments here below. Tell me, what are some of your favorite heel turns of all time? We'll move on to my number 3. And my number 3 might not be on your list. But let me tell you something. When I was a kid growing up, there was, you know, patriotism was big in America, especially when Ronald Reagan was the president in the 80s. And there was a cartoon called G.I. Joe. And I remember they had, you know, cool, extra, you know, characters from the outside world, like Refrigerator William Perry, one of the best characters to join G.I. Joe, which was a cartoon and one of the most successful toys of all time, was Sgt Slaughter. He was basically, you know, some people would call him the poor man's Hulk Hogan. But no, I think Sgt Slaughter was amazing with his Cobra Clutch. And it's pretty funny. Maybe he was always a heel. I mean, he was part of G.I. Joe, but his finisher was the Cobra Clutch. Anyway, Sgt Slaughter debuted in the WWE at the time as a bad guy in 1990. And, you know, Sgt Slaughter had just finished a feud with Sheik Adnan El-Kaisi, if I'm correct, and the Sheik had brought in the Iron Sheik. Yes, the Iron Sheik. America. Brought him into America. Brought him into the WWF, and they came in as a faction. And at this time, this was 1990 going into 1991 or 1991, where, you know, the United States had gone into war with Iraq, and patriotism again was at an all-time high. And what better way than have Sgt Slaughter come into the WWF, defeat the Ultimate Warrior for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. And people, some people may not know, but there's a separation between character and real guy, and the real guy and his family were getting death threats. I mean, kayfabe was alive and well back then, ladies and gentlemen. And could you imagine a character like that getting death threats at his home? I mean, but this was a big deal. This guy was the baddest of the baddest. He was basically aligning himself with Satan himself when he, you know, aligned himself with Iraq, again, who we were at war with. But then eventually, and listen, let's be real, guys. If he never did that, if he never made that heel turn, well, we would have never had that awesome main event at WrestleMania 7. And, but, you know, eventually he would lose to Goody Two-Shoes, Hulk Hogan, Red and Yellow Brother, and all that good stuff. It is what it is. Anyway, let's move on to my number 2. And my number 2 is absolutely unforgettable. Andre the Giant was possibly one of my favorite good guys growing up. But I got to tell you something, man. The year was 1987. This is coming off the heels of WrestleMania 2. Hulk Hogan had just defended his title versus King Kong Bundy in the Big Blue Steel Cage. It was a Piper's Pit at this time. Roddy Piper was a good guy for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, the Heenan family, led by Bobby the Brain Heenan, was always after Hulk Hogan. Always just looking to do something to destroy Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was a champion, the WWF champion. He had been champion for 3 years. And during this segment, Jesse the Body Ventura had come out, and really quickly, I'll just break it down. Andre the Giant comes out, and he's along with Bobby the Brain. Hulk Hogan's like, brother, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing, brother? What are you doing with him, brother? Bobby the Brain Heenan proceeded to cut one of the best promos, because Bobby the Brain Heenan is a man. I'm gonna do one of these heel appeals on Bobby the Brain Heenan. He deserves a heel appeal all to his own. The greatest manager of all time. Forget about heel manager, just the greatest manager of all time. But anyway, and Andre the Giant looked at Hulk Hogan, and he made some good points. He said, Hulk Hogan, you never, and I'm not going to do it in Andre's accent, but he said, Hulk Hogan, you never, in all the years that I've been undefeated, you never once offered me a championship shot. Not once. And he said, 3 years is a long time to be champion. There goes my best Andre. He was right. And I got to tell you something. He took the shirt of Hulk Hogan and he ripped it into a cross. At the same time, ripping the cross off of Hulk Hogan's chest, and that cross ripping into the chest of Hulk Hogan and the hearts of all the little boys and girls that love the gentle giant that now became the epitome of evil in the WWF. And again, I say it again, this was his opportunity to finally get what was his. What was his? A WWF World Heavyweight Championship shot. And let's be real, guys and gals. If Andre never turned heel on Hulk Hogan, we would have never had one of the greatest moments in WrestleMania history, where Hulk Hogan picked up the Giant Brother, the 5,000-pound Giant Brother, over his head, dropped the leg, and ushered in a new era in WWF history. Andre the Giant wasn't a bad guy. He officially passed the torch over to Hulk Hogan. Andre just did what he thought he needed to do. And in my opinion, I think it was a shame that Andre the Giant didn't take the title off that red and yellow, whatever. Anyway, we're going to jump into my number one all-time favorite moment, my all-time favorite heel turn. And this includes a mystery man. What am I talking about? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was back in the days of the WCW. I believe the year was 1996. And Kevin Nash and Scott Hall had come into the WCW from the other company. And they were looking to take over. They were looking to establish a new order in WCW. But they needed a head of this faction. They needed somebody to take over and be the leader of this faction. It was I believe it was Bash at the Beach, Randy Savage, Lex Luger, and Sting against the Evil Invaders, but they didn't have a third guy. Who was the mystery third guy? I'm looking at my notes here. Nobody knows who the mystery third guy was. Anyway, eventually we would see Hulk Hogan come down to the ring, looking to defend the honor of WCW. Or did he? No. In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, and I would love to know your opinion, this was the greatest heel turn in professional wrestling history. Eric Bischoff behind the scenes has spoke to Hulk Hogan, because at this time Hulk Hogan, the red and yellow, is saying the prayers, eating your vitamins, brother. It's getting a little tired. We needed something new, something fresh to take over Vince McMahon and the WWF. And Hulk Hogan decided to take off those stupid yellow trunks, the dumb red knee pads, and he was back in black and white as he formed the NWO, the New World Order. The fans lost their mind as Hulk Hogan dropped the leg 3 times on the Macho Man Randy Savage. The fans littered the ring as as Hulk Hogan, being interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund, brother, told the fans, "You want to turn your back on me, dude? You can all stick it." One of the most unbelievable moments. And again, he was an opportunist. Hulk Hogan and the NWO almost single-handedly took over. Well, they did take over the world, the pro wrestling world. But they almost put Vince McMahon out of business. This was huge, ladies and gentlemen. I want to know your opinion. Again, I'll recap from the top. My number 5. And again, guys, I want you to leave your comments below. I want you to leave your list below. And my number 5 was Larry Zbyszko turning on his mentor, Bruno Sammartino. My number 4 was, well, Shawn Micheals turning on Marty Jannety. My number 3, Sgt Slaughter turning on the good old U.S.A, the Stars and Bars. My number 2 was Andre the Giant turning on Hulkamania, brother. And my number 1 was Hulk Hogan turning his back not only on WCW, not only on WWF, but turning his back on each and every one of you pencil neck geeks. Speaking of pencil neck geeks, ladies and gentlemen, give Bill Apter a follow here. And let me tell you something, he's one of the biggest heels in the business. You guys have no idea. No one can have a comb over the way Bill Apter has a comb over and not have some secrets and skeletons in his closet. I tell you that, brother. Give him a follow on Twitter at After1Wrestling. Give me a follow at Big Ray Show. Give us a follow here at One Wrestling. Please subscribe. Hit that little bell right there, because every time we put up a video, we're always putting up videos, ladies and gentlemen. You get a little notification on your phone or on your tablet or on your laptop or on your home computer, or maybe your friend's computer. If you steal the Wi-Fi, it's not stealing Wi-Fi, ladies and gentlemen. It is an opportunity to obtain free internet service. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Big Ray's Heel Appeal. Again, being bad has never felt so good. Thank you for joining me. Well, the pleasure was absolutely, it's all yours. See you guys next week. Who am I going to talk about next week? Guess you have to tune in and find out. Peace. Share this. Later.